And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Tuesday, January 16th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show by recapping last night's game, and then we'll get into the game before that. Last night's game between the Buccaneers and the Eagles. The Buccaneers dominated the Eagles 32-9. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about the Bills and their win over the Steelers, winning 31-17. We'll get into one of the games that I didn't recap from the weekend. The Chiefs and the Dolphins. We'll get into that in the third part of the show. And then the final part of the show, we'll look at the coaching carousel because there's some things to talk about. Teams conducted interviews. We'll talk about Belichick. We'll talk about Harbaugh, where they could possibly end up. So we'll get into all that. But we'll start off with recapping the rest of the Super Wildcard Weekend games, starting off with the Eagles and the Buccaneers. So the Eagles, obviously, were struggling heading into this game. They started off the season 10-1, finished the regular season at 11-6. And, the Buccaneers, they ended up winning the division, although the last 2 weeks leading into the playoffs, it didn't look great. Baker Mayfield dealing with the rib and an ankle injury. They did win the division, but they, only defeated the Panthers 9-0. So I didn't feel great about them going into this game either. But the Buccaneers, they dominated this game. It was close for a little bit, but then the Bucs were able to pull away. The final score ended up being 32-9. So we'll go through the drive summaries really quick. So the Bucs, they got off to a good start. They went right down the field. They did kick a field goal. They went 12 plays, 65 yards on their first drive to make it 3-0. Chase McLaughlin hit a 28-yard field goal. Then the Eagles punted. Then the Bucs got a touchdown on their next drive. Baker Mayfield connecting with David Moore for a 44-yard touchdown. Bad tackling in this game by the Eagles defense. It was horrendous. Some of the worst tackling I think we've ever seen in a game. So the Bucs went up 10-0. Eagles punted, and then the Bucs another field goal by Chase McLaughlin, a 54-yarder. So that put them up 13-0. Then the Eagles kicked a field goal on their next drive. Jake Elliott hit a 47-yard field goal. That was set up by a 31-yard reception by Devontae Smith, who had a big game. Then the Bucs scored again. Chase McLaughlin kicked another field goal, and that was for 48 yards. And then the Eagles answered with a touchdown. That was set up by a 55-yard reception by 55-yard reception by Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert scored a touchdown from 5 yards out. Then on the extra point, there was a penalty, so then the Eagles did the tush push, and the tush push actually did not work yesterday, which I thought I'd never see the day. That was the case, but yeah, that ended up happening. I think it has been stopped before this year, but I think that was the first time I ever saw it happen with me watching it. So they didn't get the 2-point conversion, so it stayed at 16-9. Bucs punted, and that was the end of the half. And then that was the last time the Eagles scored. Then to open up the second half, both teams exchanged punts. Eagles got the ball. So Gainwell had a 6-yard loss. Then Dallas Goedert had a 10-yard reception. And then Hurts got chased all the way back into the end zone. And there was an intentional grounding penalty because he threw it away in the end zone. And that caused a safety. So the Bucs got the ball back, and they scored a touchdown off of that. That was the second long touchdown. Trey Palmer, 56 yards. Again, terrible tackling. You could point at James Bradbury on, I think, both of those plays. He just, I don't know what he was doing. But the tackling in general was horrendous for the Eagles defense in this game. So that put the Bucs up 25-9. The Eagles turned it over on downs. The Bucs scored another touchdown. That was a 23-yard touchdown reception by Chris Godwin. And it was weird because I thought Baker was just throwing it up because he was about to get hit. And I thought it was going to be incomplete, and Godwin came down with it. And that was the final scoring play in the game. And then the Eagles turned it over on downs again. Bucs got it back. They turned it over on downs. And that was the end of the game. Bucs win 32-9. Looking at the stats for the game, Jalen Hurts went 25 of 35, 250 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. DeAndre Swift had 10 rushes for 34 yards, 42 yards in total for the Eagles on the ground. And Swift, because I was looking at the stats yesterday, I went over it when we were talking about this game. He had 130 yards in the first meeting between these two teams. So they really just did not run the football. Which they were down by a lot later in the game, but you thought maybe they would use that more, and they just didn't. Devontae Smith had a great game, 8 receptions for 148 yards. He showed out. Was one of the few players that actually showed up for this game. Obviously the Eagles were without A.J. Brown in this game. They were going to lean on Julio Jones more, and then he ended up getting hurt in the game. He was getting evaluated for a concussion. Dallas Goedert had a touchdown in the game. He actually got banged up at one point as well. But, the Eagles, they actually had 4 sacks in the game. But it really didn't matter. That back end, that secondary just was not good, giving up big plays. Again, the tackling was horrendous. And then for Baker Mayfield, great game. 22 of 36, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, was sacked 4 times. The Bucs ran the ball for 119 yards in total. Rachaad White had 72 yards on the ground. Their leading receiver was actually Cade Otton. He had 8 receptions for 89 yards. David Moore had 2 receptions for 66 yards. Obviously, a big chunk of that was the 44-yard touchdown he had. Trey Palmer had the 56-yard touchdown. That was his only reception. Mike Evans had 3 for 48. Chris Godwin had 4 for 45 and a touchdown. The Bucs in this game had 3 sacks. Chase McLaughlin, obviously 3 for 3 with the extra points, 3 for 3 with field goals. But yeah, give the Bucs credit, man. They this was a different team. These two teams were heading in different directions. Obviously, I know the Bucs last 2 weeks weren't playing good, but on offense. But you know what? These teams were a lot different when they as compared to their Week 3 matchup. If you're the Eagles, I don't know where you go from here. And actually, big news when I woke up before the show. So Jason Kelce, you could tell he was very emotional, on the sidelines as this game was winding down. And it has come out that he informed his teammates that he is going to retire, which was something that's been speculated, for a while, especially this year. But now it's been made official. He's going to retire. So 13 seasons with the Eagles. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots back in the 2017-2018 season. 7-time Pro Bowler, 6-time first-team All-Pro, and one of the best offensive linemen, in the league. And that's a huge loss for the Eagles, because one of the things that made this team successful is their offensive line, and he's a big part of that. He's a big part of the tush push too, of course. And now with him leaving, that's a huge hole that the Eagles are going to have to fill. And you also got other veteran players that have been there for a long time, like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. There's going to be changes for the Eagles, and I think when it comes to the coordinators, there definitely needs to be changes there. Nick Sirianni, I think the way this team collapsed towards the end, and the coaching candidates that are out there, Eagles might want to consider letting him go too, because the way this team was 10-1, and a lot of people kept saying they haven't played their best football yet. They're still making mistakes, but hey, at least they're winning. And once they played the 49ers, the wheels fell off. And, their only win came against the Giants in Philly, and that win wasn't pretty either. They had a collapse for the ages. And obviously it really didn't matter that they choked away the division, because look what happened with the Cowboys. So it just, it's incredible what happened to this team. Um, and they were banged up. They were obviously missing AJ Brown, who actually didn't play his first game um, with the Eagles because he's played pretty much in he's played in pretty much every game since the Eagles acquired him from last year. Um, and this was the first game that he missed. And I mean, credit to Devontae Smith because he was the only one that really showed up. He played really well, but it just it didn't really matter. The Eagles' defense, they just couldn't tackle. The Eagles just really couldn't get anything going on offense. I mean, again, at one point this game was a 16-9 ball game, and you thought, okay, maybe the Eagles are gonna, you know, come back and pull this one out, but that just did not happen. You got to look at. There was a lot of things that went wrong with this team, and there definitely needs to be changes. I mean, they did change defensive coordinators during the year. They went to Matt Patricia, and it just got worse. I mean, the tackling, again, was horrendous. You thought there were, banana peels all over the field because these guys just kept, like, missing tackles. It was ridiculous. I've never seen that. But I thought the Eagles still were going to find a way to win and at least get to the next round. But that was not the case. That was not the case here. The Buccaneers, from start to finish, looked like the better team. And it could have got even uglier early on because I mean Baker was really slinging it, and some of these guys just couldn't hold on to the ball. Cade Otton had a drop. Mike Evans dropped a touchdown. I mean, I think they still scored on that. That was the drive, the first touchdown drive. So they still ended up scoring on that. But that could have been costly for the Bucs early on. But it really did not matter. But congratulations to them. They will be playing the Lions now in Detroit on Sunday, and they obviously played them earlier on in the year. And that was before that game. That was when I came out with that video that said, "Are the Buccaneers legit?" And since I made that video, then the Buccaneers trended down, then they came back up, and they went down, and now they're back up with the playoff win over the Eagles. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to Baker Mayfield. Because it's been a rough couple of years for him, and hopefully he has found a home here in Tampa, and they extend him. They make sure Mike Evans stays because I know obviously they couldn't agree on a contract extension before the year started. So hopefully they can keep him, and they could continue to build this team around Baker Mayfield, and this could be his team moving forward. I really hope that's the case because I want to continue to see him succeed there because again, I mean it's been a rough couple of years, but look at the Browns and how they must feel. I mean you got C.J. Stroud, on one side of the bracket, he was Deshaun Watson's replacement, and then you got Baker Mayfield in the NFC in the divisional round as well. So the Browns, not looking so good right now. They don't feel very good seeing that. But, that's pretty much it when talking about this. So let me know what you guys think about the game from last night. We're going to then move on when we come back from our first break of the show. We'll talk about the Bills win over the Steelers yesterday, 31-17. We'll talk about that when we come back from our first break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.